get ready to get sticky. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel, which obviously you already know because I'm unforgettable. Everyone, right now, whatever platform you're listening on, go give us 5-star rating. On Spotify also, go give us 5 stars on Spotify. I cannot emphasize this enough. 5 stars on Spotify. And if your platform allows for it, aka Apple Podcasts or any other platform, give us a glowing review. Everyone go like Sticky Situations page on Facebook, follow Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram, follow Sticky Situations Pod on TikTok. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast, please, there are applications in the Corona Crush posts or in the socials, or just send me a DM again on Instagram at Sticky Situations Pod, or you can send me an email at stickysituationspod@gmail.com. Same goes for if you want to date any of my single guests. I want to be a shotgun. You guys already know. I plug this every time. Reach out. I'll try to hook you up. Okay, let's get right into this. Everyone, I have an extra special guest today. Please welcome my friend Zeke. Zeke, welcome to the podcast.
I'm happy to be here, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. Okay, so before we start, because I know Zeke has a lot to say, can you tell my listeners just some identifying information? Your age, location, relationship status, and religious denomination.
Sure. Age, I'm 34 years old. My location, I live in Manhattan. My relationship status, I am single and dating. And my denomination, I grew up in a very modern Orthodox home in Teaneck, New Jersey. Today, I practice the way I did growing up. So I don't have a good, clean answer to that. I just love being a Jew. So let's leave it at that.
Being a Jew is great, no matter how you practice. Yeah. So, especially in these crazy times.
Exactly.
Just be proud to be Jewish.
That's right.
Okay. Zeke, let's get right into it.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with a story?
Yeah, so I know you sent me some questions to prepare. I have plenty of dating stories, to be sure. There are some, like, crazy ones.
Okay.
But those are more the outliers than the rule, and I feel like it's easy when you're getting together with friends or doing something like this to, like, talk about the crazy stories.
Okay.
And it makes it seem like dating is all craziness. And I will tell you that I'm here to be an optimist. I think that at least 90% of the dates I go on are at least normal and usually pretty solid. So I thought it might be nicer to open with, like, a good story.
Okay.
I have a coworker who is Jewish, and she is a total sweetheart, and we get along great, and she asked to set me up with a friend. And she asked me to send her a bio. And that is not something I have ever thought to do. But it was, like, actually very cathartic, and it was nice to sit down and, like, really spend time writing about myself, about what I like, what I'm looking for, and it was like a good therapeutic exercise. And I sent it to her, and she was very thoughtful about it. She set me up with this woman who was, like, great, like, on paper, like, super pretty, like, very similar career ambition, similar family history. And we went out, like, 2 or 3, maybe even 4 times. And after the 4th date, I was, like, on the fence because she was, like, cool and we got along really well, but we weren't really progressing. And so we had, like, a really healthy, open, and honest, like, texting exchange where we were both like, yeah, like, maybe we should go out again, but maybe we're better off as friends. And then I was like, yeah, let me think about it for a little bit. And we agreed that, like, we should not go out again. And so it's not, like, a crazy story or really even that interesting, but I think it's, like, a really instructive story about being, like, deliberate and intentional about dating and doing it the right way. And, like, most people are not going to be the right fit for you. But my takeaway from that experience was just, like, how important it is to be vulnerable and open and honest about how you feel. So maybe not the sexiest dating story for a podcast, but I thought it was good for your podcast.
No, it's a good opener. I've definitely had similar experiences, not the same, but, like, just where, like, great guy, great experience, just not the one.
Right.
And it's fine to, like, be open and talk about it. Not everything has to end in catastrophe and, like, drama. Sometimes It's just not it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a saying I like, which is don't have to accept every invitation into an argument. And I think that's very true for dating too. Like I've listened to a few of your episodes and I talk to my friends a lot about dating and people seem to get like upset a little too quickly. Like these people are strangers. They're total strangers. If they send a text that you find objectionable, like you can just ignore it, right? Like that person entered your life maybe 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you.
I mean, I don't always take that advice.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get bored and then get in fights with
Yeah.
guys from dating apps. But it's only when I'm really bored. Sometimes I'm just like, nah.
It makes for good stories.
Yeah, exactly. We need content for the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. I have actually, on that note, I have a buddy, a friend of mine who's a girl. We grew up together. She is like a sister to me, and we travel a lot together. And we were in Tennessee recently for a weekend wedding. And she and I were together, and like she was messing around on Bumble while we were in Nashville. Matched with a guy, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to go on a date. I was like, enjoy. And the guy was just like not an adult. He was like acting like a teenager. And she was like, getting all riled up about it. Like he was texting her in a weird way, like blaming her for the date not going well and just like acting like an immature person. And she was getting so upset by it. And I tried like explaining to her that like you don't like it's not worth it, right? Like don't give this guy that power to make you upset that you had a weird experience.
I agree.
Yeah.
Although I think I've gotten better about not getting upset at guys doing that, but I've definitely egged it on sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Just out of bored. Like
It sounds like we got to get you some hobbies.
I have a lot of hobbies. I don't know. I won't tell the whole story. Maybe I'll tell it a different time. But basically, I had a guy messaging, whatever, we had a phone call. He basically told me that he's an unemployed 28-year-old who DJs. And he's like, yeah, my gig is starting at 10:30. I'm like, cool. I go to bed at 10:30. Like,
Yeah, so he's just not free.
He just didn't have his life together. So, like, I kind of said that. I was like, look, listen, like, you seem nice. I just don't think we're at the same place in life and looking for the same things. And he got so defensive about everything. So then I just kind of found it funny. So I egged it on a little bit.
I see, yeah.
Then he just started saying sexist things.
Oh, that's not okay.
Yeah, no, he was like, this was after he told me, I'm a CPA, as you guys already know. This is after he told me that he was in school to be a CPA but couldn't pass the last class and tried a couple times. And he's like yelling at me to get back in the kitchen. I'm like,
Oof.
I'm doing the job that you couldn't even finish the degree to do.
Yeah.
Sorry you're so insecure about that. Like,
Yeah, I try to avoid like judgmental language, and I'm not accusing you of this, but if
I
there's
was judgmental.
okay, yeah,
I was judging him.
But that goes back to my point about like this man is a stranger. Like there's
Yeah, but like to him, I just think we're looking for different things.
right. But even that in itself could be judgmental. I like, in other words, because all you know about this guy.
Well, I asked him what he was looking for.
And what did he say?
He said, he's like, I want to get to know someone and become friends and see where it goes. And I'm like, cool, I'm looking to be down the aisle in a year.
Right.
So
okay.
like,
yeah.
or a year and a half. Like, whatever. I'm looking for someone who's more intentional about marriage, not just like, oh, let's like hang out.
Yeah.
Code for probably not just hanging out.
Right. No, so then that's not judgmental about his lifestyle. It's just literally.
No, it was just what he was looking for.
Yeah.
He's the one who took it to be like, oh, all these Jewish girls want is money and all this and that. I was like, I never said that.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't say that.
I mean, at some point you stop responding. You know.
I
just,
did,
yeah.
but far too late. But at some point, I was just enjoying like egging him on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like guys do that to me, have done that to me in the past, and I'm like,
well,
whatever.
now, but like in today's world, I know that every text I send a girl is also being screenshotted and shared with like 4 WhatsApp chats. So
Yeah.
even if like somebody says something to me that's objectionable or mean or just downright offensive, I'm not taking that risk of like ripping back at them just to make myself feel better for a moment, because I know there's going to be like 14 pairs of eyes that are seeing that
Also,
text.
like, I told him that I would post, I have the ability to blast him on a public platform.
Right.
That is my podcast.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of friends read the exchange.
Yeah, I'm sure it was cringy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I try not to engage. I try to just,
Yeah, that's the way I feel. It's just not worth it. They're strangers.
yeah.
Yeah. I have plenty of bad stories. I mean, a lot of catfishes, not a lot, but too many.
Too many.
Yeah, I got way better at like discerning. Some people just like use pictures from like college, and men are do this too. Somebody actually said something to me recently on a date that was like the most backhanded compliment I ever received. We had met on Hinge, and she said to me, "You're proof that for every wait, let me get this right." She goes, "You're proof that there are quality men hiding behind mediocre profiles," which is like it's like I think it's a compliment, but like and then like I kind of pushed back on her, and she was like, "No, I just mean like you clearly are just like a guy who posted his like 5 most recent pictures to his Hinge, as opposed to somebody who's like airbrushing and like doing a lot of work." Which is true, but I think I'd rather have that experience where I sit down and the girl goes, "Oh, you look better in person," than like walking in and being like, "I don't recognize this person because now I realize that these pictures are from when you were like in a sorority and I'm 34 years old."
Yeah. I mean, I had literal matchmakers tell me that I look better in my old pictures and I should use those, and I'm like, lady, I am not trying to mislead people on what I look like.
Right, because then the date starts off with the person you are misleading automatically feeling as though they have been slighted somehow.
Yeah, and I've been misled.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say catfished, but definitely misled by guys with pictures that were old or didn't look like them, or other things that they put in their profiles that aren't true.
Yeah.
So I always try to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be pretty desperate to do that sort of thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'd rather just be single.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I've had those. I had one girl that one woman, excuse me. A friend of mine is dating this guy, and I said this in his company once, and he just like ripped into me, and he turned to my friend I went to college with, and he goes, "Do they not teach like gender studies at Rutgers?" Because we went to Rutgers. I was like, "Geez, just because I said girl instead of woman." So I'm very sensitive to it.
It's fine. We're not so
PC.
We're PC,
woke.
but we're definitely not woke.
Okay.
I don't believe in woke culture. I say this, I'm going to backtrack just for a second. I don't want to talk about politics or anything. After what woke culture has done to the Jewish community, I do not believe in it.
Okay, fair enough. So. You know the famous Barry Weiss quote, and we can scrub this if you don't want to get into politics, but she said that American Jews went to bed on October 6th as Democrats and woke up on October 7th as Republicans. So we're not getting into politics, but it's in that same vein.
I was never so into woke culture because I think we've seen time and time again, we stand for everyone else and no one stands for us.
Right.
And I'm very much of the belief I'm going to stand for my people and my people only because nobody else cares about us.
Yeah.
So, but whatever.
There's just no good.
Politics.
So back to the girl woman thing. Like guy is just like the perfect word because it's not boy, it's not man. There's just not a good equivalent in the female gender, and I wish there was. But anyway, so so I went out with a girl once who, and it was not our first or second or even I think it was our 4th date. And I got to the bar or restaurant before she did, and she walks in, sits down, and everything I say to her, she's like combative about, like in a weird way. So I remember this was a couple years ago. I had a coworker who had just quit to go get his MBA, and this woman was an MBA, and I was just telling her this story, and I go, sometimes I think about maybe going to business school. Like, do you think it's worth it? And she goes, I'm trying to see if I want to date you, not be your life coach. And I was just like, whoa, that was like not the angle I was coming at. I was like, why don't let's switch gears. It was like a Sunday night during football season. And I said, did you watch any football today? And she goes, well, because I'm a woman, I can't watch football. And then I was just like, you know what? Like, we're just not hitting it tonight. I was like, something happened. I don't know what, but like, let's leave. Like, I'm not going to just get yelled at for the next hour and a half of my life. And then we stand up to go, and this poor woman cannot walk in a straight line. Like, and she wasn't slurring her words. So I think she was just like rolling on something. And I had to like carry her home and like get her into her apartment. So that was my worst day. But again, like I tried opening this podcast by saying these stories are not representative of the vast majority of my experiences. They're just like more interesting to share on a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the podcast is. I go on my fair share of boring dates, and they're just boring, and it's not it. But the crazy ones is what we talk about.
Yeah. I think I'm contrarian about that. A lot of my friends, and maybe it's mostly women who feel this way, like hate first dates. I actually very much enjoy first dates because I feel like it's low risk, high reward situations. Like the low risk is, all right, you don't hit it. Like, but the potential of you guys like really hitting off is there. And if that doesn't happen, you get to meet somebody new, learn something interesting about their lives and what they do or where they're from, and I don't know, go home after.
Yeah, I guess for me, there are a lot worse things that could happen on a first date than just not hitting it off.
I see.
Like I could be murdered and kidnapped and raped.
Okay, so
Also, like, I've gone out with my fair share of guys who are, like, very socially off, and, like, I don't care to learn about them or like they're just creepy or weird, and it's like I don't need to spend an hour learning about you or meeting you or anything. Like I'm never going to talk to you again. And if you try to contact me, I will block your number.
Have you become more discerning in the folks that you go out with?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So hopefully not every date are these types of
No,
people.
no. This was like probably more towards like earlier parts of my dating career, and also in times where I just like wanted to go, not, I wouldn't say desperate, but just like, I don't know, after a breakup, it's like, okay, I want to get back in it,
Right.
get like, go on more dates. Now I'm just like, I'd rather watch TV in my apartment.
Right, yeah.
Or like hang out with a friend.
Sure. Well, you need to have a balance, right? Like, you can't go on a date every night of the week. That's crazy, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty extroverted, so I like to have like 2 days in every day. One of my 2 days is work, and then like I'll go meet friends or go play sports or go on a date or before I go home. So I, like for my own like mental health balance, I need to.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty extroverted also. During the week, it's like hit or miss. Like I'm in the office every day,
Yeah, me too.
except for Fridays sometimes. So like sometimes it's just like, and depending on the time of year, it's like I might be working late. So it just all depends for me. But
Right.
yeah, usually I have podcast stuff going on during the week.
Okay,
Like
cool.
I try to set up recordings when I'm good about it.
Yeah.
So that's like interaction.
So you just don't date during Q1, I imagine. Unless you're not doing, I don't know what kind of audit you do, but
So I'm actually in corporate accounting now.
corporate accounting, okay.
Yeah,
So you don't have
so
like that
I have-
crazy busy crunch.
No, we have a bit of a crunch, but it's like, it's not as crazy as when I was in audit.
Yeah.
But I definitely won't date during the week in like January and the first half of February. But I don't
Why?
have to
Because
work.
it's too cold or because you're busy?
No, because it's busy.
Oh, okay.
But I don't work the weekends.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I actually prefer going on dates during the week.
I do too, because
Yeah.
I don't want to like give up my weekend.
Right, it's like low stakes. Like you just
Yeah.
go, if you're in the office and I work in Midtown, I can get anywhere.
Yeah.
Right, grab a quick drink after work. First date's definitely better during the week for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I just, because my work schedule, I never know if I'm going to be out of the office at 7:30 or 10:30.
Yeah.
So like,
Right, that's fair.
and at 10:30 I'm not. Even at 7:30 I don't really want to grab a drink.
Right.
But I do have the flexibility of being able to go out on the weekend. So if a guy did come up that I wanted to go out with, I do have some availability. So I'm not really like, oh, I can't date. Like when I used to be in audit, it was like 3 months out of the year. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, yeah. When I first moved to New York, I was in my early 20s and not getting paid very much, and I had 2 roommates and a fake wall like everybody else.
Yeah.
And to supplement my income, I taught actually bar and bat mitzvah like lessons every single night of the week.
Wow.
So I would work late and then go to like these fabulous homes on the Upper East Side and teach kids the alphabet, and then I'd get home at like 8:39. So there was just like a good stretch where there was just like no time for anything else. So I very much, that resonates with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I talk about the Jewish thing for a minute? Because
Yeah.
you asked me my denomination. I just want to expand on that a little bit.
Sure.
So I think this is partially advice, partially just my philosophy. I find, and I'm curious if this has been your experience too, that especially in a world where a lot of my friends are Jewish and the degree to which can vary quite a bit, I think that there's way too much focus on finding somebody who's like a carbon copy of you in terms of religious observance, right? Like, I've had friends that are like, this guy's perfect, this girl's perfect, like, this woman's perfect, we have so much in common. But, like, they eat out and I don't. Or they'll turn the lights on Shabbat and I won't. Or they whatever. I think if you think about it, like, on a relative basis, like how many 8 billion people in the world, the similarities between the two of you are so freaking close that to get held up on something like that, I think is a mistake. When I date now, I only date Jewish women, but when I date, and I've dated Orthodox, conservative, like I've dated women of different backgrounds and denominations, but when I date, like the more important thing to me, or the most important thing to me, especially now, as we talked about earlier, is that you love being Jewish, you're Zionistic, and like the rest I feel like we can figure out, right? Like I grew up in a home that was very modern Orthodox. Like my father would check us to see we're wearing tzitzit in the morning. Like he was intense. And I went to an all-boys school, K through 12, and then, I went to college, and that was the end of that. But Yeah, and like I wouldn't trade I every year I host a huge perm party on the west side. So everybody who's listening, you're invited March 23rd. Is perm this year?
This episode might come out after Purim, but
Okay, well you're invited to 2025. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm so like proud of the fact that I can open a Megillah scroll and just read it top to bottom like right now, right? So I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. But I'd rather end up with somebody who like eats out or whatever, but loves Judaism, loves the holidays, loves Israel, as opposed to somebody who maybe grew up the way I did, but like those things might not apply to. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah, I agree with you and I disagree with you. I'm only saying this from my own experiences because I actually had a fairly serious relationship with a guy who was on a very different page religiously than I was. And I don't know where he's at now, like religiously. I don't know if he loves Israel. I'm sure he does. He's actually Israeli, so I'm sure he does. But at the time we were dating, I tried to break it off pretty early on, because we just weren't on the same page. He didn't keep kosher, he didn't keep Shabbat, and like those are two things that are kosher less so, but Shabbat is something that's like very important to me. And when I see my future house, it's not even like turning on and off the light. It's like I want to have Shabbat in my house.
Yeah.
I want to go to shul. I want to be involved in the community. I want to have the necessary observance level that like people are going to come to my home because like yeah, we live in Manhattan now, and I always say that the community we live in now is a fake world. Like I have friends who I know don't keep kosher, but I know that their apartment's kosher. Like I don't think about not eating in their apartment just because they don't keep Shabbat. I know they didn't cook it on Shabbat. Like I know that their food is kosher. I'm not questioning it, but like I think in other communities it's not the case. And I know I'm like nitpicking on this one thing, but we dated for a while. We talked about getting married. We talked about the next steps of our relationship, a timeline, everything. But it came down to talking about what our future home looked like. And he's like, but Saturday, he told me, number one, he can never see a world where he doesn't have to work on Saturday.
Is he in like construction? What is he?
Yeah, he's a contractor.
Oh, okay.
He has a contractor company. Yeah. Like he runs the company. And he does some other things. He's like, I just don't see a world where, because this is where the conversation started. Because I wanted him to come home with me for a weekend to like meet my family. And I told him, I'm like, if you come, like, I don't want to see your phone. Like, you can't take your phone out if you're at my parents' house.
Right.
And all of these things, and it just like started our conversation about what our future home would look like. And he's like, well, I'm gonna have to go to work, and like. I don't know if I want to go to a synagogue. He's like he was saying, he's like, what if I want to take the kids to the beach? What if I want to do this? And I'm like, okay, well, if the kids have the option between going to shul or going to the synagogue and keeping Shabbat and like not doing any electronics with mommy or going to the beach with daddy and watching TV and playing video games, like, what are they going to choose? Because like, I know as my childhood self would choose going and not doing Shabbos. And it just like was too different of a world. Yeah. I think if you're at the level where someone like really loves Shabbat, but like, okay, maybe they'll like cut a light on every now and then, maybe like check their phone in the bathroom, it's different. But like, it's also like two different worlds.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it sounds like your experience with this guy, I'm drawing two conclusions. One is that maybe you were just too far apart. Like that certainly sounds like that was the case. Mm-hmm. But also, it sounds like maybe there was like a fundamental respect that may have been missing. Like if he's coming to your parents who are Shomer Shabbat and you ask him not to take his phone out, like that doesn't seem like a big ask, right? So that to me is maybe indicative of there being like fundamental foundational issues.
I wasn't saying he refused that. It was just how the conversation started.
Right. Okay, that's how it started. Yeah. Well, I have one of my best friends. Grew up the way I did, and he's Shomer Shabbat today. And he's dating a woman who is not. She's Jewish, but never grew up being Shabbat observant the way he is. And they've totally been able to navigate it. Like, she does Shabbat dinner with him, and then if she wants to be on his phone or whatever, he doesn't care. They moved in together, and they're actually, like, planning on getting married. And I have other friends that have had similar experiences, and I think... You're right. Like, it's not easy. I'm not trying to say that it is, but I think what's unique about their relationship is, like, the partnership is so strong that I don't think it will be difficult for them to navigate it, even in a home with children. It certainly will be more complicated, but, like, he's way better off with her, who's like the perfect match for him, than somebody who's similar, maybe not the perfect match that she is, but keep Shabbat. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a weird thing to like let get in the way.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, I did try it out. I think it has scarred me from future experiences. Like, not so long, last year at some point, I like met a guy, we hit it off, but like it came up very early on, and he's the type of guy, he loves Judaism, loves going to events, loves doing Shabbat, loves like doing all these Jewish things, but like wasn't going to keep Shabbat ever, or wasn't going to keep kosher. For me, I think kosher is a little bit different, because I think a lot of kosher is like you do it on your own time.
Yeah.
So as long as like, you know, like for me, I keep full kosher. So like if I'm going out with a guy, as long as we're eating kosher together and like a future home would be kosher, like that's the only important things to me. I don't really care what he does on his own time.
Right. I guess the difference is like I'm probably a little more flexible than like this is a hard line in the sand for you, and it should be. It is. Like I'm willing to be flexible the other way too, and that's just the way I've thought of it. Like, and also on the kosher thing, I eat out, but I keep a kosher home because I want my friends and family who are strictly kosher to be comfortable in my home. Like 2 sets of everything, different dish racks, like strict. And usually that's actually never been an issue with a woman I've dated who's like totally not kosher. They're usually like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like you want your mom to be able to eat when she comes into the city, right? Like they get that.
Yeah. I've had guys talk about like when it comes to traveling, they're like, I don't want to be restricted to only eating kosher food. Like I don't think, for me, yes, it is one more annoying step that you have to factor into traveling, but it's also, it's not like that big of a deal to me because I'm used to it. But like a guy who's never done that, he's like,
yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I get it from both points of view.
Yeah, I guess I encourage people to be a little more flexible if it means finding the right person for them, because I think that is paramount in this life.
Yeah, I'm always open to trying things, but like the second it gets too much. Or on the opposite end, if I have a guy telling me what to do, like telling me I need to wear a skirt, telling me he wants me to cover my hair, like that's not for me either.
Right.
So
your body, your choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone telling me what to do with my body.
Right.
But on the same token, like I'm never going to tell a guy, I want you to wear a kippah.
Yeah.
I want you to wear tzitzit.
Yeah. Look, I think at this point in my life, like these things were bigger issues for me when I was younger. Mm-hmm. I've been in a few relationships, and I've been with women who are more religious than I am, and she would be upset when I wouldn't do things the way she wanted me to. And I've been with women that are less religious than I was at the time. And I'm using these words flexibly, so please don't get upset if you're listening. Religious is offensive. And I would get upset at her. Like, I would stay with her for Shabbat, and at that point in my life, I was keeping Shabbat the way I did growing up. And she, like, would always turn the bathroom light off. And I'm like, is that really that freaking hard just to keep that on? You know, like, so, but I guess now that I'm maybe older and maybe a little wiser, I think I have a different perspective on these issues than I did in my 20s.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll change.
Yeah, well, I don't mean for this to be like a therapy session. I'm telling you.
No, it's fine. I'm like, we both have had different experiences.
Yes.
And I think we all, with dating in general and stories, we all only have our experiences to go off of.
Yeah.
And I guess to some extent our friends' experiences.
Yeah.
Like I definitely have certain friends' experiences that have shaped the way I look at dating. I definitely will not get into it because that is not a story for the podcast. But yeah, so everyone has unique perspectives based off of what they've gone through.
Yeah, yeah. I actually find it very useful to talk about dating with my friends, guy friends, girlfriends, because I like to crowdsource, right? You want to like double check yourself, especially when you start liking somebody. Like I am a different human, and it is embarrassing when I like get a crush, and I'm just like constantly like, am I like, does she not respond to my text because she hates me, right? But like when you're just going on like 1 or 2 dates and it's like casual or like you're like not that into her, I'm like, you know, you ever watch shoot, what was it called? Family Matters when Stefan Steve Urkel becomes Stefan. Anyway, I'm dating myself. We'll do a different reference. I'm like Casanova when I'm not interested in the girl, right? But the moment you get butterflies, the moment you have a crush, you like turn into a totally different human, or I do anyway.
No,
So,
I do too.
yeah.
I think I lose my tough exterior.
Right? Like every guy knows that you got to be confident, you got to like come across like self-assured but once once that crush hits, you just like turn into like a 6-year-old boy. Um so it's very, I think for me, very instructive and useful to like crowdsource when I am having like clouded thoughts and not seeing things clearly. And I think it's also very good to destigmatize, right? Like a lot of people who like date in a silo and don't talk about with their friends, like could use some instruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of my guy friends, and I'm not saying that I'm like God's gift to dating, but a lot of my guy friends like really don't know what they're doing, and I don't mind telling them.
I never mind telling guys what they're doing wrong.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll tell girls what they're doing wrong too. I find maybe it's with the younger guys. A lot of them really just need guidance, and
yeah,
it's like. But I found out with older guys, not older, like guys in their 30s, which I'm in my 30s, so technically, but
was it just your birthday?
yeah,
Happy birthday.
a few months ago,
Okay,
a couple
cool.
months
Welcome
ago.
to the 30 club.
I'm a fresh 30.
Good.
But
30's fun. You stop giving you stop caring as much.
oh
No
yeah,
cursing. Yeah.
carrying is out the door.
Yeah, yeah. But also, like, you're further along in your career. You're probably making a
Yeah.
little money. Like, you're not worried about, like, paying rent with 16 roommates. Like, it's a comfortable place to be in your 30s.
Yeah, no, thank God I am really enjoying where I'm at being 30. And like also like you said, I just don't care as much about certain things.
Yeah.
And also like I think I'm enjoying being single more at 30 than
Yeah.
like I feel like in my 20s, in my 30s like yeah, everyone still pressures you to date and get married.
Yeah.
But like in your 20s it's like, "Oh my God, I want to be married by the time I'm 30. I want to be married by the time I'm 30." And you know what? I'm 30 and I'm not married. And I
Yeah,
don't
I,
care.
you know what? That's something I have strong opinions about, too. And I'm gonna caveat what I'm about to say by saying the following. Like, I am fully aware that I have won the like genetic lottery when it comes to this because I don't have to worry about eggs or biological clocks. So I'm aware of that. That said, like there is just too much damn pressure on everybody in this community. Like I have a friend, a good guy friend, who when we'll go to like events, right? And he's a catch. He's tall. He's handsome. I won't say his profession because it's very specific, but let's just say he's been in school for like 15 years and is in medicine. Great family, like just a great guy on paper, like easily my most eligible friend. When he goes to these like UJA events or FIDF events or whatever the same events we're all going to, it's like he's looking around like for his wife, and it's like, dude, chill. Like let's just meet some interesting people, right? Let's make a friend tonight. All this like pressure, and it only serves to, I think, backfire in many situations. Because in every first date you're going on, you're like, is this person my partner? And it's like, whoa, like let's get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I've found that like what helps me take the pressure off of events is actually the podcast.
Yeah. Well,
'Cause-
booze helps too. I do a lot of drinking.
Oh. I actually like I'm not the biggest drinker. I'll drink a little bit. Like I'll have a drink.
Yeah.
But I found that the podcast helps because it's an automatic thing to talk about. Like yeah, I'd love to meet someone to date or marry, but at the end of the day, like I'm also looking for podcast guests. I'm looking for more listeners.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, okay, like it's less daunting of a task to network for the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than like for myself to date. And
Absolutely.
I've met a lot of interesting people and I've had a lot of like cool guests. Like we met at an ONEG.
Right.
I walked into an ONEG and Zeke was sitting with my friend and we started talking about the podcast and he's
Yeah.
like, I'll come on your podcast. And I'm
Yeah.
like, cool.
Because that's my objective when I go to these events. It's like, let me meet somebody new and interesting.
Yeah.
Like finding somebody to date is the last thing I'm thinking about when I go to these events. Like if you hit it off with somebody and you connect, like sure, that's great. But I think like that pressurized environment that we find ourselves in is really unuseful.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. We're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors, but we will definitely continue talking about this and other things when we come back. So we will be right back.
Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk, to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself or have a friend post you and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Sticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri-state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in-store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929-376-9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, if you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world.
We're back. Okay, so Zeke was just telling me offline that he has a lot of advice, opinions about what people are not doing on dates that they should do more of.
Yeah,
so
okay, so
I want to hear more
I'm
of this.
curious what you think about this, and
Okay.
I get mixed reviews. I actually like talking about third rail topics on first dates. So people say, like, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, don't talk about, like, spicier stuff. But I find it's actually very useful for two reasons. One, if there are dispositives about a person, you'd like to know that on date one and not date 4 or 5. And B, like, they make for really good topics of conversation, right? Like,
Yeah.
once you get through, like, your job, your family, where you're from, what you like to do, blah 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 blah, like, why not bring up, what do you think about Russia and Ukraine? Like, that's like a very topical topic, and I don't think I've ever asked anybody what they think about Russia and Ukraine. But my point is, like, bringing up even U.S. politics or how they feel about, Trump or Biden, or how they feel about, like, stuff going on in the news, abortion, like, not in a way that's meant to be divisive. And like I said earlier, I don't get upset on dates. Like, these people are strangers, so even if it's something that I find, like, really offensive, I'm not going to get offended because it's not somebody I yet care about. But, like, you're trying to get to know somebody, and that's, like, a great way to get to know somebody.
I don't disagree. I will say, though, this is going back to, like, early COVID. Early COVID, I had a video call with this guy, and he brought up politics right away, and we had opposing political views.
Yeah.
I'm also not, like, the most political person, so,
Right.
like, I'm happy to have a conversation about it, but, like, as soon as someone tries to start arguing with me, like, about what I believe in, I just, like, kind of shut down because I don't really want to discuss.
Yeah.
Because it's not, like, my favorite topic. I think it's important for certain issues, but, like, just as a broad general, it was also 2020, the election was coming up and everything, and we had opposing political views, and all he did for the entire hour of this video call, God knows why I stayed on for an hour,
Yeah.
was
sensing a
tell
theme
me
here, Rachel.
tell me why I was wrong,
Oh, jeez.
and just like, keep reiterating his points, and yeah, that was unpleasant. I tried to figure out ways to get off of the call.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't because it was 2020 and we were in quarantine and I had no good excuse.
Yeah, you just hit the X. I mean, so, like, I'll clarify. Like, I don't think you should come in and be like, hey, nice to meet you. Like, how do you feel about Trump? I think what I'm trying to say is really more like, don't shy away from those sorts of things. And and it's not like I have strong opinions, but I'm not, like, super left or super right. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty center on just about everything.
Yeah.
And maybe I studied philosophy as an undergraduate, which was a million years ago. But, like, that's just sort of the way my brain is wired. It's just I find it interesting to talk about complex issues because I try to like go into a conversation with a mindset that I might leave it with a different opinion than I entered it with. And it's kind of like, you know, like in consulting world, in interviews, they'll ask you questions not because they want to know what the answer is, but just because they want to see the way your brain works. And so that's also more why I think it's interesting to bring these things up. Not that you're like interviewing your date, but I mean, honestly, you kind of are.
I always go into first dates at like a job interview, but I'm the interviewee.
You're the interviewee.
No, interviewer. Sorry.
You're the interviewer.
I'm the interviewer.
Yeah, I mean, yes, in the sense that your mindset is like, do I want to hire this person, right? Do I want to onboard this person into my life? Agreed. And that's also why, like, making eye contact and asking questions and, you know, like showing interest. Like, these things are applicable to both the professional world and also to dating.
Yeah.
And it's shocking how many people, like, have normal jobs, but for some reason can't do it in, like, the dating world. But yeah, like, for me, if somebody is too stubborn one way or another, like on dating apps, right? Like an immediate swipe left will be if they say like, swipe left if you vote for Trump, swipe left if you vote for Biden, like either one.
I don't like any of that. It's like, yeah, either one, no matter if I agree with them or don't agree with them, I think it's a big turnoff to just be so like close-minded.
Yeah.
I heard on a podcast somewhere, and like I try to keep that in my mind, not to put anything negative in your dating app profile.
Totally.
And that's why I don't really like the prompt. It's like, don't like swipe left if this, or like don't talk to me if that. Like, because I think you should generally keep things positive. And yeah, like everyone has their deal breakers and their things that they will not go for. But at the same time, when you automatically put that out there, it's setting it on a negative tone.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Instead of like there are better ways of communicating it and seeking it out in the other person.
Right, because to your point, if I otherwise would have matched with somebody, but they say something like, don't swipe if, right, like we actually are probably compatible, right? Like if it's one, like just keeping the Trump Biden thing, right? Like if the one they say don't swipe on is the one that I wouldn't vote for anyway, I'm like not going to match with you because I think you're annoying, right? Like, so it's better, to your point, like either say it or allude to it in a positive way or figure it out on a first date and then like let it become a one and done.
Yeah. I also don't know if this is controversial, but I tend to not like extremes.
Right.
Like if somebody is very, and like, it might be contradictory because I think I might be extreme on certain things. Not political stuff, but just like, I'm just a very dramatic person and I could be taken as extreme. But like, I find when people present themselves as super extreme in anything, it's like extreme dislike. Yeah. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. And that's why you try to, I mean, it's a good way of weeding people out on the apps. But that's also why I bring these topics up on dates, because it's a good way of like getting deep and learning something about the person you're on a date with that you might not otherwise find out until like you're down the road and you've started dating, and like it would have been way nicer to know this on date 1 or 2.
Yeah. I would say the only extremist green flag that, in my opinion, is if they're Swiftie.
Okay. Yeah, that I don't mind. I don't mind.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, in all sense of, like, whatever. If somebody is way too into something or way too against something, I don't like that. It's like, okay, we have lives here. We have jobs.
I remember I went on a date with a woman. And it was like post-COVID, but, like, we weren't really that far out of the woods yet, but, like, restaurants and bars had opened up. And we go to a restaurant and they had asked for our vaccine cards, which was a thing back then, which is shocking. It feels like that was 10 years ago.
Literally, it was.
I think I still have like that browning thing in the back of my wallet.
I think I do too. I have the app on my phone.
Yeah. And so they asked for the vaccine cards, and right. It feels like a lifetime ago, honestly. Yeah. And I took my gross thing out of my wallet and showed it to them, and the woman I was with showed them something on her phone. And we sit down, and she goes, "Oh, thank God I got that fake. Like, otherwise we couldn't have come in here." Right? And at that time, like, in New York City, like, we were still cheering at 7 p.m., right? There wasn't, like, it was pretty unusual to have a fake vaccine card at that time.
Oh my
So
gosh.
to me, like, and then she kind of like went on a rant about how, like, Bill Gates is putting microchips in us or something like. I mean, it wasn't that extreme, but it was like a little tinfoil hatty. And so, like, all right, I'm glad I learned that about you now, right? Like, and I didn't get up and leave. Like, we went through the date, and I put her in a cab and sent her home or whatever it was. But like, I did not see her again. And it's not because like, I'm a big, like, everybody's got to get 12 vaccines. Like, I don't really have a strong opinion about it, but like, for you to go and get a fake and like talk about it in that way seemed a little out of the norm.
So I was in Miami a couple months ago, and I was just like swiping for fun because, like, why not? And so many more guys than I ever would have thought still have in their profile, if you're vaccinated, swipe left.
Yeah, it's a big Florida thing, I imagine.
And I was like, vaccines were like this has been years. Like, why do you still care about this?
Yeah.
Like, either which way, like, yeah, my views on vaccines are also very, like, neutral. Like, everyone should do what they need to do to protect themselves.
Right.
But it's like, if you're so anti,
it's just another example of
like,
an extreme. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, why?
I know. It's like a little off-putting because if you're so extreme about certain issues, are we going to be able to compromise around things that are a little bit more complicated in the relationship?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because if you're going to dig your heels and like, this is my hill to die on when it comes to something pretty abstract and innocuous like that, in terms of like who's going to win the election, then we probably can't figure out Shabbat. So it's like, that's why I say you'd rather know that earlier on than later.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give another dating story. I went on, this is actually a little bit more recent, as a few months ago. I went out with somebody, and date was fine, and we scheduled a second date, and we're supposed to meet for dinner at like 8, I think, and it was a weeknight. And 7 p.m. rolls around, and I get a text from her, and she goes, hey, can you send me an Uber to take me to the restaurant?
Interesting.
Okay, and she lives in New York, and I was like coming from work, right? So, first of all, like logistically, then she'd like have to give me her address, and I'd have to like triangulate. Like, obviously, I paid for the first date. I was obviously paying for the second date. Like, that was clear.
Yeah. So
to ask me to get the Uber was just like, so you just want me to like pay for everything, and you're like, I'm not so sure why you're asking me to do this. And so I responded, and I said no. I was like, no, and I'm canceling the date. Like, that, I don't want to spend time with you. That's absurd. I thought it was just like so offensive. Like, it wasn't a far trip. It wasn't going to be very expensive. Like, you can't get your butt to the restaurant. Like,
yeah.
No.
Okay, so here are my things with dates. I always prefer when the guy asks me like what neighborhood are my preferences.
And I always do that. And I picked a restaurant in her freaking neighborhood.
Okay. So if you did that, I think you're totally justified. Where I would ask for an Uber home, and I won't ask.
Okay, but
and
Uber,
I also probably wouldn't take up an offer is going home.
Right, home is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have paid. I've certainly offered, but usually you just like hail a cab, or the woman says, "Oh no, I can get the Uber." Like, thank you very much, right?
Yeah.
But if we had gone on a date and it had gone well, and then she wanted an Uber home and asked me to get it, I may have been a little bit permissive of that, but. To be like, yo, grab me the Uber to the restaurant.
No, I think getting it, especially, I think if you had picked the restaurant and it was right next to your apartment and she lived like in like a bunch of neighborhoods over and she was coming to you, I think that would be a little more justified. But if you asked her preferences and you picked a spot like based off of where she said, then yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, so I was just like, absolutely not. I'm just canceled it on the spot. Yeah. I think, I guess I'm like a little bit old school. I don't know how you'll feel about this, but, I'm a modern person. I believe in equality in all ways. But there is something to be said about the man in a dating situation being the one who's like taking a little more control, taking charge, scheduling the date, like being a gentleman, respectful, picking something in their neighborhood. Like making sure they get home okay, paying the bill, and I'm all for that, and I like that actually.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of where it ends, right? Like, and I always appreciate like if we go for dinner, then like drinks after, let's say. It's nice when the woman will be like, let me at least pay for a round or something like that, you know. So like it's not like extreme one way or the other, but like it's to an extent, right? Like you want to be the guy who's pursuing. I think women like to be pursued. And I think it's the man's job to do the pursuing.
Yeah, I actually had a recent Shabbat meal conversation
where
the
guy... This is not going to end well, I already know.
No. The guy at the table was talking about that also, and he's also very traditional. I personally like when in a dating scenario it's a little bit more traditional. It's not the fact that like a woman can't do it. I just think that when a woman... it's just like different brains.
Yeah.
Like from the pursuing point of view, it's like I think women are a lot more open to things, and a guy will know. Like a guy knows if he likes a girl, like probably within the first 3 seconds of meeting her. Women, I don't know. Like I've changed my mind about guys a lot of times. But anyway, I'm digressing from my Shabbat meal conversation.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We came up with the 3 P's of dating, at least for a first date. What the man should do is pursue, plan, and pay.
Good, absolutely.
But like you said, if we went out to a first date and the guy paid, I'm the type, I don't even pretend to take out my wallet. Some girls do the pretend to reach for the wallet. I won't. I'll just say thank you.
Yeah.
But if we go to another location or do something else, I'll offer. For the second.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I agree with you. Like, I think that there are some low-hanging fruit that a lot of men are unable to grab. Mm-hmm. Like, the things we're talking about, like, that should be below the bar, right? Yeah. Like, these should be givens. These should be obvious.
It's crazy that it's not.
It is crazy that it's not, and I think it's because people don't get, like, feedback, right? Like, when my friends do things that I think are absurd, I tell them. Like, I keep talking about this one guy, and he's a great guy, so if anybody knows him. But, like, he always picks a bar near his apartment. And I'm like, dude, you're just, like, sending a message out that you're not serious and you're just trying to get laid. Hopefully I can say that on this podcast.
Yeah.
And the truth is, like, it works for him, and that's what he wants. And then he'll say, like, oh, but I can't find anybody that I really like. And it's like, well, put some damn effort in, right? Like, do the 3 Ps, like, show some pursuit, and then maybe things will, like, change for you.
Yeah. Also, some of my reasons behind why I think a guy should do that, which, I consider myself a feminist. I have a job that, like, I work in corporate America. I believe in equal pay, equal rights, equal everything. But I do think just, like, in general, women have certain things a little bit harder. And, like, okay, you want to pick, you pick your example with your friend. He picks a bar near his apartment. Okay, let's say I live a 40-minute train ride from there. 30-minute train ride. So what? We're meeting for drinks at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock? Then I have to get home.
Yeah, but the thing is,
like,
if you say no, there's 6 girls that say yes. That's why he does it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, in general, like, women have issues that, like, men will never know. Like,
I know, I totally agree with you.
Certain safety things.
Yeah.
Even, like, my new thing is, like, some inconvenience will come up from being a woman, and I'll text my friends. I'm like, this is why a man can pay for a first date.
Yeah.
Like, I just had to go through this. A man can pay for a first date. Like,
I've never had to put a tampon on. I'll pay for your date.
That's not even that bad. I was talking more like a pap smear, a Brazilian wax.
Yeah.
Like, these are things, like, men will never have to experience. Or, like...
Also, just, like, we're gross. Like, we're so, by far, the uglier, like, gender. Like, women are beautiful creatures,
like,
and we're just, like, ogres.
So
the least we can do...
My makeup costs more than the drink and the Uber home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not right now, but... meaning, like, if I go on a date and I'm doing, like, full makeup, full hair, like... That's time, effort, money. Yeah.
I will say, though, that, like, I'm going to, like, defend men for just a minute.
Okay.
It's very rare that we get, like, truly complimented. And when a woman, gives you a genuine compliment, it stays with you for life. So, like, every now and then, don't be afraid to just, like, tell a guy he looks cute, or that, like, you love his outfit, or that you're looking forward to seeing him later. Like, you don't want to do it in a way that's, like, promiscuous or, like, sending the wrong message, but, like... It goes a long way. So I'll tell you a story. And I've gone actually on a few dates with a woman who I actually really like, and it seems like it's going well. So by the time she hears this podcast, either we'll be in a relationship or she'll never talk to me again. But what I really liked that she did early is we had gone on a date, on our first date, and then, like, the next day you did the classic, like, I had a great time, love to see you again. right? And she goes, oh, me too. I'm like, okay, great, right? Like, check one, right? And then you have to like go down the checklist. When are you free this week, right? So so we went out on a Sunday, and then like Thursday we were both free. Great, okay. So I fully expected like, okay, I won't hear from her or talk to her until Thursday, right? Like, we went on one day. I don't need to text her. I don't do the whole pen pal thing. But she goes, well, like, what are you up to today? Like, doesn't mean we don't have to talk between now and Thursday. And I really appreciated that about her, not because she was like complimenting me, but because like in the world of dating apps, it's very, very challenging, I find, to develop real organic momentum. The way, like, every relationship I've been in, and I've been in like 4 real relationships, I've met all of them in person, because you'll meet like at a friend's thing, or you'll meet doing something that you have in common, and then there's like opportunities to see each other like on a date or not on a date, and just like develop chemistry in a million different ways. When you are dating somebody that you have matched with, it feels like you're scheduling meetings sometimes.
Yeah.
And so you really need to like push for developing momentum in a way that might feel like a little forced, but it's incredibly necessary not to, otherwise it'll fizzle out, right? And so like I push myself out of my comfort zone too. So just about this person in particular, we had gone on, I think now 4 or 5 dates, and she's from California and she was home for the weekend, and I was just like, hey, can I give you a call? Like, see how your weekend's going, right? Which is like, it feels like a little forced, but yeah, you have to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so defending men for a moment, men should absolutely be doing the things you're talking about. Be pursuing, be respectful, be cognizant of the different things that women have to deal with, certainly while navigating the city. Like, I will, even if a date goes not bad, but like I know I'm not going to see them again, and they probably do too, I will almost insist on making sure either I walk them to their apartment, and I say, like, I'm not even trying to come, I just want to make sure you get home, right? I will hail a cab, I'll make sure they get an Uber. I think I've been with women who have experienced things that are awful, and so I've been trained at an early age about these things, which we can talk about another time. And so I agree with you 100%. Like, men are obligated to do these things. It's not even like it's a bar. It's like, if you don't, somebody should smack you across the face, and I'm happy to be the person to do it. That said, once you've met what I believe to be like this minimum requirement, then like women can also like metaphorically squeeze their hand every now and then, because we are so used to being like expected to be like the protector, the pursuer, and we're just little boys inside that are wondering why you're not texting us back. Like, that is the damn truth, whether people will admit it out loud or not. So all the women who are listening, if you like a guy and he's doing all the minimum bare things that he should absolutely be doing, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you, because it will make his damn day.
So I'll admit, I am used to being like the hard, like, no, he needs to do this, he needs to do that, he needs to do this. But I've learned from my past relationships, and also I've been told by male guests on the podcast, male friends, what you're saying. So like, I try to make an effort. Like, it never hurts to put effort in one time. If it's not received, fine, I won't do it again. But like,
yeah,
like, I will send that first text.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, if I'm constantly initiating, like, that's where
right,
that's
absolutely.
where I'm not.
And look, I agree with you, right? You don't want to get into that bad habit or pattern. And this is where also why I don't text, especially like once I'm in a relationship, we'll text and call and whatever all day long, but not all day long. I mean, I have a job, but in the beginning, I don't like doing it, because I think it creates this false sense of comfort and security where you really don't know that person. So I'll try, like, and it's rare that I'll like develop like butterflies, but when it does happen, I think it's important to like throw that out there, see how they respond. Like, okay, I'll bring up another story. Okay, this is embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Last Tuesday? Yeah, last Tuesday I went to the Knicks game with a buddy of mine. Actually, I brought him up earlier in the podcast. He's the one who's Shomer Shabbat. He's dating a woman who's not, but like they made it work, right? So we're at the Knicks game, and he tells me that he's planning to propose.
Wow.
And I love this man. Like, he is one of the most loyal human beings, one of the greatest people on the planet, and he's had some tough things in his life. And I was just like so happy to see him in a healthy, happy, like just positive relationship. And I'm like tearing up, and I'm so happy, and we're getting drinks, and just like, it was like a night, right? And so I get home, and I'm seeing this girl who I've mentioned, this woman who I've mentioned, the next night. And I sent a text that was a little over the top, right? Like, can't wait to see your gorgeous smile, or some like was a little cringe for ever only having gone on like 3 or 4 dates, and she like did not interact with it, right? Like didn't respond, didn't like it, like nothing. And like, but the next morning she's like, see you tonight, right? Like we're still on. So the date went well. I think we did like, I can't remember, it was like a movie, and then we went to like a cocktail bar after the movie. And we were like vibing, and I brought it up during cocktails, which is like, again, like probably not something a normal person would do, but I'm a believer in like, let's get it out of the open, right? Like, let's be vulnerable. You're not going to fall in love with somebody unless you have to be vulnerable. You get hurt that way, but you're not going to find your person unless you're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yeah, like I wanted to vomit. She was just like, I didn't know what to do with it. Just like, I didn't know how to respond. I was like, okay, so now like, she's like, I am like happy to be here. And like, obviously things were going well, but you learn things about the other person, right? So what I learned from that experience is that she didn't react to that text, not because she hates me and doesn't want to see me again, but because that's just not that's not her love language. That's not like the way that she likes to communicate. And I'm glad that I brought it up. And I did in a way that was like cute, and now we like joke about it, like it's fine. But I'd rather do that than like live in my head going through these like vicious cycles of like, why isn't she, So yeah, I think just like shine a light on it all.
I'm with you on that, but also I'm really bad at keeping things in my head. I just, at some point it will word vomit out, so right. I might as well control it.
Yeah, that's fair. And you have to approach these things with a sense of like emotional intelligence, right? Like going back to the example we talked about before, you don't just like, the moment I saw her, I wasn't like, hey, why didn't you engage with that text I sent you at 11:30 last night when I was drunk with my friend at the Knicks game? I said, hey, really nice to see you. Like, how was your day, right? And then like, we hung out and we were vibing, and we went through the movie, and so like later on in the night it sort of came up organically, right? So obviously you have to approach these things with a sense of sensitivity, but if you can do that, I don't think you should shy away from bringing up things that could otherwise be uncomfortable.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now she's going to hear this, and like, I don't know when this is going to be 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, and either we're going to laugh about it, or I'm going to be like, oh my God, I hope she never listens to this podcast.
It's fine. It'll be a while. So hopefully you'll be either madly in love or you'll forget who she is.
Right, and then we'll just be strangers again like we were a few weeks ago. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that like people go from being strangers to like some of the most important people in your life.
Yeah, it's wild.
To strangers again.
Yeah. Actually, on that topic, in preparation for this podcast, I listened to your last podcast, or your last 1 or 2 over the weekend, and there was an interesting conversation you had with a guest about having friends of the opposite gender. Mm-hmm. And I actually find that to be a really interesting topic. I think it's possible. And I don't think it's like a bad sign. But I've been in relationships where people are like friends with their exes and things like that, and that I think is over the line. But what I think could make it possible is the common denominator of, like, you can talk about it. It's a healthy part of your lives. There is no sort of like romance, and it's really just like platonic, and we can talk about what makes something platonic and what is really not platonic, and you're pretending for it to be platonic. But I don't actually think it's a problem. And I'm curious what you think about that.
I stand with a strong opinion that it can't
just impossible.
Not impossible. It depends to the extent of the friendship. Like, I have guy friends. Like, I talk about, like, friendships and everything. Like, I have guy friends. They're not my best friends. I wouldn't call them up at every single issue that I have. If I have, like, a problem that I know they could specifically, with their skill set, whether professional or their personality, like, they would help me.
Right.
I would go to them.
Like a task rabbit.
No.
I'm kidding.
No, but I'm saying, like, if they were themselves in a certain situation and I had a similar situation and I knew that they could help talk me through it.
Yeah, but you're approaching it like in a very, like, utilitarian sort of way.
No, I mean, I do genuinely enjoy my friendships that I have with my male friends.
Like, and I don't imagine you want to jump every one of your male friends.
No.
Right.
But I do think certain boundaries are necessary.
I think boundaries is the key word here.
Yeah, boundaries. I think it's not that you can't have friendships, but there have to be boundaries, and those boundaries just get even more solidified when somebody gets into a relationship.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I would just add to that or like dovetail boundaries with healthy communication, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't like. I'm sure I've had exes who had guy friends, and I've had girlfriends, and as long as you're communicating about it, you can't make it like stigmatized, right? I think that's where you get into problems.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a lot of men out there, and I have this problem, and I will fully admit it, where when you get into a relationship with a person, you like have something that's called like past jealousy, where you're just like, I don't want to know about anybody you've ever been with, and it's an insecurity, and I wish I could just like press a button and it would go away.
Yeah.
It's not logical, but a lot of people deal with it, right? So I think the caveat is you have to be able to like have healthy conversations around it. And if one person just goes, well, you can't tell me who I can and cannot be friends with, like you're just shutting the door on the possibility for that conversation, because all your partner really wants is to have their hand held and squeezed and be like, here's the situation. I want to hear how you feel about it.
Yeah. And like for me, I haven't really run into this issue with my own personal dating life.
Yeah.
Because the guys that I date like aren't in these situations. But I know guys who like all their best friends are girls. And I think for me,
they're probably gay. All their best friends are girls. All right, that's
all their best friends are girls, and it's like, okay, for me that's a red flag.
Yeah, it's strange.
Like, why is everyone you hang out with a female? And if that's your like social circle, why don't you marry one of them? Like,
well, okay, I'm going to push back on that. Like, one of my best friends in the world is a girl, a woman. Like, we've known each other since we were 18. Not once in our entire, I don't know how many years that is, I'm terrible at math, 16-year relationship, friendship, like, has there ever been, like, a thought? We never had, not even came close to anything ever once, right? She's truly, like, a sister to me, and I think she feels the same way about me. She knows every one of my brothers. She comes over for Passover, Seder's to my mom, like, part of the family, right? So for me, it's like, why am I not married to her? Because I don't see her that way, right? Like, it shouldn't be like that shouldn't be a premise. But just because we're friends, I should be married to her.
No. I'm saying like the classic like rom-com, like two best friends dating other people, but like confide in each other about everything.
Yeah.
They end up falling in love.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm not saying this in terms of like, oh, I've developed feelings for someone or whatever, but I think guys that I meet and become friends with, in my mind, I at least do like a quick like analysis of
right.
like, oh, would I want to date them? Would I be open to this?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, just because they're my friends doesn't mean I didn't think about like, oh, like, is this a possibility? Like, I'm not saying like, oh, every time I see them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to marry him. It's like, no, you meet, you become friends. I like their personality. We're friends for some sort of reason.
Right.
So it's like, could I see myself being with this person?
Right, but once that door gets slammed shut, right, and you communicate about it, and you set that boundary in the friendship, that's like, yeah, we're just friends. I think it's totally possible.
I think it's possible, but it's not impossible to like nothing. I don't think the door is always closed until somebody's like married or not even. I don't think that door is ever really closed. And I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, I want to marry all my guy friends, but I'm saying like if there is a chemistry, even if you've closed the door of dating, like you're dating other people, whatever, there's still a possibility of the door's not locked.
I don't know.
Like,
yeah,
it could be open. There's always potential.
But I think you're saying that just because we have different body parts, right? Like, and the reason I'm saying that is because like there is no potential that I'm marrying my best guy friend, right? Like,
yeah,
I really like. There are people that view their friends of the opposite gender like the same gender.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have had very close relationship with guys, and like I've found that somebody always develops feelings and it ruins the friendship.
And that happens a lot. That absolutely does. And that's why I'm going back to like the communication, the boundaries are huge. Because I have had friendships, honestly, where it's like, yeah, like she's probably thinking about it, right? And like I'm only friends with women that like I just want to be friends with them, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can sense that that's not a two-way street. And I agree with you in that regard. And that would be an inappropriate friendship to maintain when you're in a relationship. But it is possible for the street to run both ways, in my view.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just because from my past experiences, I'm very much like, if I'm friends with a guy, I develop feelings. I know he doesn't feel the same. I'm putting distance. Like,
right.
Like, there's no reason to stay in a friendship where, like, you have feelings for a person and, like, they don't have it back.
Yeah.
Or the opposite. Like, I've had guy friends who have clearly had feelings for me and I did not reciprocate.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's like, this is torture to torture them.
Yeah. But that's also, like, you got to just talk about these things.
Yeah. I mean, this was in my earlier, in my 20s,
right.
probably my early and mid-20s. But still, I like to keep boundaries. And, like, I do have guy friends. And my guy friends are great. And I really enjoy my friendships with them. I'm not in love with any of them. I'm not thinking we're secretly going to get married or whatever in my mind. Like, I genuinely like them as friends. And they are my friends. And not for specific reasons. It's just because I enjoy being around them.
Right.
But at the same time, like, my friendships with them are so different than my friendships with, like, my really close girlfriends.
Yeah. I find that it's also, and I keep using the word useful and instructive, but it can be to get out of your echo chamber, right? Like, if you're sitting around with your girlfriends, you know, I feel like you can get into the, like, every guy sucks, and the girls are, oh, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're the best. Like, these guys are just the worst, right? So,
yeah,
it's true for me too, right? Like, if I feel like I've had a bad run, you know, a couple bad dates, I can sit around with the guys and being like, and then, you know, they could say something, oh, those girls are all like, you're way better than them or whatever. I feel like it's more useful, and I feel this way about a lot of things in life, not just dating, right? Like, I'd rather talk to somebody who has an opposing political view because I might learn something. I'd rather talk to a woman about my dating experience with women because they're women, right? Like, it'll be way more insightful to hear from my girlfriends what they think about a dating experience I've had than guy friends who can't walk and chew gum at the same time when it comes to dating.
No, and sometimes I do appreciate a male perspective on my dating stories, and when I need dating advice, and I'll run things by my male friends.
Yeah.
Just, like, to hear their opinions. Or, like, I don't know, I thank God I have a lot of friends right now who are married. And, like, a lot of I do have a good amount of friends who are single, but a lot of my friends from growing up in college and all of those years of my life, in my early 20s, they're married.
Yeah.
So, like, one time I was having a really big problem. I don't even remember the problem, but, like, I needed advice.
Yeah.
And I was on the phone with one of my friends, and she's like, do you mind if I bring my husband in? Just, like...
And you were not independently friends with this guy? Just, it was your friend's husband?
It's my friend's husband. Like,
yeah.
I met him, but, like, we don't live in the same place. Like, she's my friend from school, and, like, we don't live in the same place.
It's not like you all went to college together.
No. I met her husband. He's a great guy. But she's like, do you mind if I just bring him in? I think, like, he might have a good perspective on this. So, like, that was really helpful to, like, yeah, she was just, like, helping me and, like, calming me down, but, like, it was helpful to hear from a guy's perspective as well.
Yeah, totally. And I'm very fortunate that my best friends in my life, I'm really close with their wives too. I think a lot of my friends married young. I mean, it's not an uncommon story coming from, like, a modern Orthodox community, but I would way rather talk to them, like the wives who I'm friends with, about my dating, because the last time these guys went out with a girl, they were 17 years old, some of them, right? And it's true for them too, but, like, you know, the women too, it cuts both ways, obviously, because they're married and they were dating since they were young, but it's just like you get a fresh perspective, and from the person you want to get that perspective from.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's possible, but with, like, the appropriate foundational boundaries and communication. Those are, like, prerequisites for making it work.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay. We're getting along too well. This isn't fun. We have to fight more. There's got to be something we disagree about.
I generally don't fight with my guests. I've been insulted on my podcast and still haven't fought with my guests.
Wow.
I don't know. I genuinely agree with most of the things you're saying. Like, I'm not lying. I'm not a good liar. I'm not a good liar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I give whoever comes on to the podcast the platform to express their views and opinions.
Okay, that's great.
And, like, I can be told that I'm wrong. Like, yes, if I get together with girls, like, we will go off on guys.
Yeah. No,
and trash talk them.
Yeah.
And, like, I admit that. I do that quite frequently.
Right. Which is why I think when we opened this podcast, I came on and I was like, I'm going to be the optimist. I think dating is lovely. You get to meet new people and there's potential. I think, and getting back into, like, the advice portion of this episode, I think you have to be vulnerable. Like, you can't fall in love if you're afraid to get hurt. I think that's so true. I think a lot of women that I date generally are pretty guarded and protective. I'd like to date women are, like, similar to my age. I don't like to date much younger, just because I find I just have more in common with people around my age.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And I understand why people come into things guarded. You don't want to get hurt. A lot of people, by the time you're 34 years old, you've probably been in a few relationships and you may have been hurt before. And I get it. And you don't want to like open up right away and just jump in head first. But at some point, like you have to, if you're ever going to like really fall for somebody. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword like everything else in life, but life is best lived by the risk takers. And I think that's certainly true when it comes to dating.
Yeah. I think you regret more what you didn't do than what you did do.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the same vein, and I'm going to get personal for a moment, like you, you got to get out when you know it's not right. And that's my problem is I stay in relationships for way too long because when I was younger, I did it for just because I didn't want to hurt them and I didn't have courage is the truth. So you both have to like open yourself up to the possibility, but also like when it's not there, and that's okay. And it's in everybody's best interest to end something that's not going to go where you both want it to go.
I agree. I'm very much the type. I'm not very impulsive like in general, but I'm not good at hiding my feelings.
Yeah.
So like this, when I start to feel something isn't right, that's when I like freak out and like.
Yeah.
Basically, I do sit down and have that conversation, but it's like when I start feeling it, it's like, okay.
Well, good for you for having that conversation because, and if any of my exes listen to this podcast, I'm so sorry that I didn't have the courage to have these conversations when I should have. Thankfully, they're all just terrific women. 2 of them are married with kids, and I'm sure the other 2 will too. But yeah, it takes a level of courage, but it's not just courage. It's like you think you're being selfless by not doing it because you don't want to hurt the other person. But it's honestly like incredibly selfish, and you're really doing it because you don't want to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation where you have to have that conversation because it sucks. Everybody who's listening who has done it knows how awful those conversations are.
Yeah.
But that's why it's a selfless thing to do because it's painful and it's in everybody's best interest to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
And with a lot of therapy, I've learned that lesson a little too late in life.
Another plug. Everyone needs therapy.
Yeah,
so go.
Everybody needs therapy.
Okay, Zeke, before we wrap up the episode, is there anything else, any other stories, any other topics that you want to share before we get into our closing segments?
No, this was a lot of fun. I'd love to come back or just continue the conversation in more informal setting, but thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Okay, so I know we've given tons of advice throughout, but can you just give me and my listeners one piece of dating advice?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to touch on a lot of the themes that we've talked about throughout this entire episode, but you got to just bring your true self to every date. Like there is no good reason to hide or to pretend to be somebody that you're not, because if the intention is falling in love with your partner, you have to show who you are. That's just not going to happen. So I would encourage everybody to be open and vulnerable and honest from the get-go, and don't be afraid to talk about things that might make you uncomfortable.
I agree with you. That's a good piece of advice.
Thank you.
Okay, and last but certainly not least.
Oh man, here comes cringe. Go ahead, ask me.
What is your Real Housewife tagline?
Here's my Real Housewife tagline, and this is an ex said this to me, so I can't take credit, but I will fall first, but you will fall harder.
I like it. So wait, are you the one that falls first or harder?
First. I'm always just like, I really like you, let's do this. And then, because I get butterflies and I freak out and I have a crush and I don't know how to handle myself. And I just like text them too much, I call them too much. And I'm like, why aren't you giving me my validation or reciprocation that I freaking crave?
No, it's good because it goes in with one of my dating rules that I haven't even talked about on here a lot. If a guy likes you, you'll know.
Yeah, you'll know. But going back to therapy and this person that I'm dating now, because Jesus is just over now if she hears this. My therapist is like, this is actually this is a good change of pace for you. It's like you've gone on like a date every few days. You're kind of talking. Like it's going at a very healthy, normal pace, as opposed to some of my prior experiences where it's just like 2 dates in, I'm like diving into the deep end of the pool, which I know is a problem I have and something I'm working on, which is not the point of this show. But I think it's important to take time to really get to know somebody before you like are boyfriend and girlfriend, or man friend and woman friend.
I agree. Even though I also tend to like get very ahead of myself, but I know you have to like pace.
You got to pace and stay busy. I think that's really helpful too. Mm-hmm. Like when you're getting in your own head and you've got a crush and you just want to talk to them every second of the day, go to the gym, hang out with your friends, put your phone down, like set some healthy boundaries and guardrails for yourself. I think the worst thing you can do when you're pursuing somebody and are excited about the prospects is sit on your couch waiting for your phone to buzz. So get out of your own headspace and crowdsource. I'm fortunate that I have really good friends that can have these deeper conversations, and it's useful, I think, useful to just like bounce things off of them and make sure that you are maintaining your sanity. And sometimes like if it's getting to the point where you're not getting any reciprocity and it's like at that time where you should, then they might just not be the person for you and you can just cut the cord. And that's okay too, but it's good to get out of your own head and get these things out loud with people that you trust. I'll give you one more quote.
Okay.
Don't accept criticism from somebody you want to take advice from, right? So why I'm bringing that up is because it's important, I think, for me to crowdsource, but more important to crowdsource with the right people. Like at this point in our lives, post 30, welcome. I think it's important to be judicious about with whom you spend your time. And like, when you're in your early 20s and living in New York City, you're just going to every stupid party in New York, somebody's friend of a friend of a friend, which is fun. But now it's like if I have 2 beers, I'm like hungover. So time is important. You get less of it as you age because you're working more and your body just can't keep up the way it used to. So seek out those people that you can have really deep and productive, fruitful conversations with and have those conversations.
I like it. And I agree.
Stop agreeing with me.
No, but I've been like that probably since like my later 20s, mid to late 20s. It's just more intentional with who I spend my time with and what I'm doing with my time.
Yeah, you got to be deliberate.
Yeah. Sorry for agreeing with you so much.
No, I'm kidding. I just want your listeners to stop listening.
Zeke, this has been so much fun.
Pleasure's
Thank you
all
so
mine.
much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Shaky Situation Nation, you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.